So now that we've at least got some open string names, we got some names on the keyboard that we've looked at. I've sweated bullets for years on exactly what order to teach stuff in. I have a reason for it. So if you know a lot of theory, you got to trust me as to why I'm doing things next. I have a plan. We're going to define the word interval, okay? So when we go from pitch to pitch or from note to note, when they're different, there's a distance involved, okay? And that distance is called an interval. So interval is the distance between any two notes. It doesn't matter. Now remember, in Western music we have a 12-tone system, so we have how many notes in an octave? 12. So there's 12 slices. Between each slice is called a half step. The distance from one slice to the next adjacent slice is called a half step. When I was first presented with this, it was like, well, why not just call it a step and have 12 steps? This has been lost in time, and I've sweated that for years. I still don't know why. It just got to be tradition. So the distance between any two slices is a half step. And if you do two half steps, then it's a whole step, right? In Europe and England and still other places, and a little bit later in the class, you're going to find a lot of people use the term semitone and tone for the same thing. So if you hear the term semitone, it means the same thing as half step. If you hear the word tone in theory circles, it means the same as a whole step, okay? Except for one little sidebar thing that'll make sense later in the class. We use half steps and whole steps because most people in the musical circles that I've been in and that you'll probably encounter use half steps and whole steps. But every once in a while, somebody will say semitone and tone, so you know what that is. With me so far? So let's go look at half steps and whole steps on the keyboard. Now this is a little tricky. May not seem so tricky to some of you. It's brand new to some others. Here's our C. Now everybody sing to me C. Ready, go. C. Okay, now some of y'all need some more music classes because that was out of tune. I'm just kidding. Everybody sing C. Ready, go. C. Oh, that was better. Oh, see, y'all are there. You just had to warm up. Now, if I want to go down a half step, I'm going to go to the left one note to the very next adjacent note, which is this white key, which its name would be B. So everybody go, B. Now I want you to sing the word half step, and we're going to sing the C on half and B on step, or I'll demonstrate. Half step. Now sing that with me. Ready? Half step. Sing one more time. Half step. And that's a descending half step. You notice how we went from high to low, right? One more time. Half step. Okay, now we're going to go up. Now, if you're brand new to this, a lot of people will make this mistake and go, well, the half step above would be this guy here. Nope, that's wrong, because now we're skipping Mr. Black Key here. Okay? So a half step is defined by whatever's the adjacent note, which means a half step above C is this guy here, right? And that's going to be half step. So sing that with me. Half step, half step. One more. Half step. Now we're going to go back down. Half step. One more. Half step. Now go up. Half step, half step. With me so far? Okay. Now a whole step, two half steps. Whole step equals two half steps. So if we're at C, this is one half step, this is a whole step, right? And it sounds like this. Whole step, whole step. So sing that with me. Whole step, whole step. Okay? Back to this guy, we're going to do it going up. So remember, this was half step. Listen to this. Half step, half step. But now we're going to go up a whole step, and it's going to be whole step, whole step. Now sing that with me. Whole step, whole step. Now go down a whole step. Whole step, whole step. Now going up. Whole step, whole step. Now we're going to go down a half step. Sounds like this. Sing it. Half step. And we're going to go up a half step. Sounds like this. Sing half step. Half step. Now, where do you think we're going to go next? We're going to go down a whole step. Yes, ladies and gentlemen. Ready? Sing that as whole step. Whole step. Now going up. Ready? Whole step. Now, if you think it's lame to sing, it's the most valuable thing you can do. Because what I want you to learn is what it sounds like and what it works on paper. Okay? So that's another side of this is ear training. Every time I ask you to sing, doesn't matter if you think somebody next to you thinks it's bad. If you're here to learn, sing it. You're going to get, and I'm going to have an assignment for you here in a minute. You're going to be singing it a bunch. So you want to differentiate between half steps and whole steps, and here between the two. On the keyboard, you'll notice that there's no such thing as two black keys that are a half step apart. No such thing, because every black key has a white key in between. So a half step is always going to either be a white to a black or a white to a white. Okay? You never have black to black whole step because there's always a white key in between. Did what I just say make sense to everybody in the room? Who's bold enough to say, I'm not quite sure what you meant, Austin? Bold enough to say, thank you, Joe. A half step is any adjacent note. Okay? So for a black key, the only adjacent note is going to be a white key. So there's no such thing as a half step between any two black notes. Because black notes are at minimum a whole step apart. Because there's always a white key in between. Okay, so it's always up a half, or there's a whole. Okay, so black keys never are half steps away from each other. If it's a black key, the half step's always going to be another white. However, if it's a white key, the half step could be a black key, or it could be another white. Does that make sense now? If you really know the fretboard, pay attention over there. Okay? Now, on the guitar fretboard, it's a little bit different. And in some ways, it's more obvious because you don't have those black keys that are like, wait, which one's which where? Okay? So what's our phrase that helps us remember the names of the guitar open strings? Say it with me. Eddie A. Dynamite. Goodbye, Eddie. Okay? So if I play this open string, what note is that? What pitch is that? That's an E for Eddie. So the bottom string here, from my perspective, its bottom is E. So if I then fret it, or apply my finger and push it down here at the first fret, it raises the pitch by a half step. Okay? Now look on your paper if you need to. Look at the piano keyboard. And you wrote down some letters, right? Look at the E on the piano keyboard. Okay? Hopefully you wrote it down. You see an E on the piano keyboard? Okay? Now if you go up a half step from E, what are you going to have? Not a black key, but an F, right? Another white key. So if on the fretboard I play an E as an open string and I go up a half step, what do you think this is called? F, right? An E up a half step becomes an F. There's no black key on the system of theory keyboard player thing, right? E becomes an F. So when you go up a fret at a time, it's a half step at a time. And I'll also throw this in that we're going to touch on it later. You may notice there's these little designs on my fretboard, okay? And those in some guitars it's a dot. And you'll notice there's a couple here. So this fret is the 12th fret. Most guitars have two dots on the 12th fret in order to let you figure out where you're at. Put some dots as anchors so you can visually go, oh, that's the 3rd fret. Oh, that's the 5th fret. Oh, that's the 7th, that's the 9th, and the double dot is always the 12th fret. How many slices in an octave in the Western system? 12. So we got a double dot at the octave. So if I play this E open, and now I fret it at the double dot, if I fret it at the double dot, now it's the same note. Here's the low note. If I fret it there, it's going to sound like the same note but higher. This note that becomes this note, same note, but kind of sounds higher because this is the octave of this at the 12th fret. Because there's 12 half steps in an octave. Make sense? Yeah. A little bit? Okay.